Okay, we're going live now. Let's see, and I think, let me just make sure we're live.
Oh, it does say live.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's feeding to Facebook. It takes a moment. Maybe? Yes. Yes, there it is. Okay. Hi. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. Um, it's I'm looking forward to talking to you. These talks have been really fun, just getting to talk to people who I don't get to see very often.
I know. It is good.
So, yeah, before we started, I asked if you might lead a centering. Would you do that? Would you mind? And then you can introduce yourself after that.
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Make yourself as comfortable as you can be wherever you are, whatever that means. And join me for a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just two more deep breaths like that. And really harness your attention so that you allow yourself to land in the building that you're in the room that you're in, and then further yet, right inside your body. Sense the weight of your body, supported by whatever is beneath you, your seat, the earth. As you do so, really connect to your sense of aliveness. Consider doing that by connecting to a welcome sensation in your body. And then do your best to continue connecting to that sense of aliveness. Forever and ever. Amen. Okay. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them.
That's good. What did you say? Forever and ever?
Amen. I was joking.
All right. Thanks. Thank you. Um, I was just thinking. I think I met you at the Yoga Service Council conference. Is that a few years ago? That's where we first met.
Yeah. Is that where I went?
I think so. Yeah. So
Yes.
can you tell people about yourself? Actually, can you?
Sure. Um, Actually, you know what I might do is I was in a meeting earlier and we were asked to introduce ourselves. Oh, it wasn't on the computer, so I don't have the notes. Anyways, my full name is Rachel Monique Knowles. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, on the land of the Creek people. And um, I'm a strong advocate for movement, embodiment as gateway practices to healing through presence.
Hmm.
I've been teaching yoga in Atlanta mostly since 2012 and practiced for the first time, I believe I was like 12 or 13 and have always been really curious about it.
Hmm.
that help? Is that good? What else should I
Yes,
say?
that's good. Um, yeah, the sound isn't great. I'm just trying to figure out if it's me. I think it might be me.
Oh yeah, I was hearing a little echo, but I didn't know if this was me.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an echo. Um, and anything else you want to share about? No, that's all.
Um, Related to yoga, I started a nonprofit a few years ago called
Yeah.
Cultivate Union, and the intent of starting that nonprofit was to speak the language I have now that I didn't have then, was to support economic justice for yoga instructors and equity through financial assistance for advanced and specialized training.
Yeah.
And I prioritize giving to people of color and queer folks and folks with different abilities, just with the intent of making the Atlanta yoga community look more like the real world.
Yeah. So someone says there's an echo for you. So I don't
Oh,
know if you can. Part of it might be turning down the speaker.
my speaking.
Yeah, like, well, we're hearing, were
Should I
you
put in
hearing
headphones?
yourself? Yeah, you could try. Um, if it's easy. It seems to happen a lot actually through this platform. I don't know why. Oh, okay.
Hold on, let's see.
And maybe I'll talk a bit while you're doing that. I've always admired your work actually regarding that, regarding equity and money payment. But also, I love your interest in the Bhagavad Gita in particular, which is what you spoke about at the Accessible Yoga Conference in St. Louis, which was, I
Mhm.
think, about a year ago. I don't know. I'm really not good at times, days. Um, okay, let's hear you now. Is it plugged in?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds much better.
But are you hearing an echo?
No,
Oh,
I
I
don't hear an
am.
echo. Oh, now you're hearing an echo?
I was hearing an echo before.
This sounds a lot clearer to me. Um, let's see if anyone watching can say if there's an echo now.
This is when a
Okay.
thermometer is really helpful.
Yeah, this is good for me. Like, this sounds really much clearer. Um, well, maybe someone can comment. I'm going to keep talking about the topic. We're here. Okay, now there's an echo. Christine, is it worse with the headphones? Because I don't hear it now. Um, there's a slight delay, actually, is what happens with Facebook because we're in Crowdcast. Okay, still an echo. So I will try. I have another technique I can use. What's that?
I was trying to change the mic.
You're unmuting yourself. Let's see. I have one idea too.
Oh,
Now talk.
I don't hear my echo. Ooh,
Now you
I do hear it a little bit, but that's okay.
a
Less
little
than.
bit. I don't know if there's something I'm doing. Okay, well, let's see. Is it still? People are saying it's exactly the same, but maybe did you change something? Do you have so you have your headphones in and you have the mic turned off? Then is the mic on the computer is turned off? Sometimes the echo is then when your computer the mic is hearing us talking. So you can turn it down.
Hold on a second.
I just want to make sure that it's working before we keep going.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I can hear you. People are being very patient. I wanted to, can we talk? Let's see. Say something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that might be better. Keep talking.
Still talking, but I don't know if
It got
the
quieter, so I bet, yeah.
output is working. It's not showing multiple microphones. I wonder, oh, do you have Facebook open right now, Jivana?
Yes, but I have it turned down.
You might have to mute it fully.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, that could be it. Okay, now, how about now?
I think that's it.
Okay. So let's try now. Maybe let's see.
Because I don't, did you mute it?
Yeah, but there should be no input on that because it is only happening on on Crowdcast. Okay, Brina's gonna check it out. Brina's joining. She always solves all my problems.
Thank you,
She's very
Brina.
smart. Okay, we have to talk.
Okay. Talking.
Talking? Let's talk about
Talking.
our talk, and then, Brina, tell me if there's an echo. Oh, wait, now you're gone.
I'm here.
Okay, I guess my sound is quieter, she's saying. I'll try to talk louder. Okay, so she said the echo is not there, but I don't know if that's true for other people.
Well, I wasn't talking. The echo is only happening when I'm talking, which is why I'm wondering if it's from your sound or my sound.
Right.
Because I have
Brina,
headphones in.
yeah, Brina said the echo's gone.
Oh, okay.
But I will
Let's
try.
do
I'm
it.
moving my speaker over here, and maybe that'll help.
Okay.
Okay, let me try that. All right, so let's talk. We're going to talk about yoga philosophy, and I know that your passion has been the Gita.
Mm-hmm.
Have you also studied the sutras?
Yes. I would say mostly independent study,
Uh-huh.
which is the same way that I engage the Gita, by finding other books or workshops that I'm interested in, mostly for the sake of wanting to better understand as a student, and then realizing that other folks are interested too.
Yeah.
Then you share.
And do you have any thoughts about the theme, this connection between social justice and yoga philosophy? I mean, anything like general thoughts about that before we look at maybe more detailed?
Yeah, I think well, obviously, you know that I think the Gita is a beautiful platform through which to have that conversation. But I think generally about yoga philosophy, what I understand practice to mean is how to be better engaged in the world and show up as more of who I am, which is from the heart, with courage, with compassionate honesty and kindness, which is inherently connected to social justice, in my opinion.
And what about obviously I agree. I guess the reason I asked that generally is that I was reading a bit, following some other threads on social media, like Sean Korn actually recently posted, a very strong post just maybe a couple of days ago about voting for Biden and saying that, it's essential, and, just being very clear that yoga is political and you have to stand up and speak up. And she got so much like negative feedback on there. Like, there was just, a lot of support, but a lot of people kind of going to this place of like, yoga is not political. Don't ruin it. And all this, like, yoga is not politics. So I don't know, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. Well, first thought is, I would say before like celebrating anything, just like people using their voice in ways that feel comfortable is something to be celebrated. And then as it relates to not ruining yoga, spiritual practice and personal growth are inherently intertwined and not separate. So I feel it's unfortunate to hear that someone would think that speaking up about how we engage in the world feels separate from our spiritual practice. And in fact, I would say it's our responsibility to leverage the insights that we gain from our spiritual practice to be more present in the world.
Yeah.
So what I hear in that instance is a desire to bypass. And I don't use that term lightly. It's a term created by John Wellwood to speak to the difficult relational elements of being in a community and managing conflict while seeing each other's pain and suffering. And the idea is that bypass, people are not really willing to do that. So that's what I mean when I say bypass, is that this person is missing people's suffering and what it is that Sean is speaking to.
So when he talks about that term, it's about others. It's not about your own.
It's the relational dynamic is what I mean. So one thing that he mentions in an article, I don't know if you've read this, there's a really cool 18-page article interview with him about the term that I'll send to you.
Yeah.
And he says, when we're not able to acknowledge our own needs, our own suffering, it is very challenging for us to do that for others. And that's the relational dynamic of it that I saw when you were talking about someone wanting to silence another person or look past what they're looking to bring forth to community for advancement because that person is not willing to consider someone else's perspective.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think I think we can also find what's the word, like proof of this in the teachings themselves, like how, so maybe we could look at that, like where we see that in the Gita or the sutras, this idea of like caring for others, or like the role that we have in relationship to others. Because I think part of the confusion that I see when this point comes up is around that relationship, like how people talk about yoga as an inner journey only, without looking at context and how that inner journey can only happen in the context of a supportive community. Like that I would say that it's not like you can go on that journey by yourself. That it's an inner journey that requires community. There's like a paradox there.
Yeah, it requires community. And then are you still hearing the echo?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I never heard the echo though, so.
The irony. Because I can still hear it. Anyways, gonna keep it going. When we're talking about people, we have to talk about culture. And culture is what shapes how we engage as community. this is one of the initial things that I understood to be true, and I considered what my responsibility was in engaging with founding a nonprofit, redistributing resources. I had to ask questions like, who often gets access to resources? In what ways? What do I do to decolonize in order to disrupt the systems that I've been socialized within around this? And so, because we practice yoga in the United States of America specifically, we must then look at the systems that shape our culture and be responsible for actively practicing in a way that contributes to the liberation of all by acknowledging the systems of oppression that we've been socialized within, which is what I think you speak so beautifully to with accessible yoga, and acknowledging the dimensions of accessibility, which are not just physical.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the focus of my practice for sure, and that's what I, like I mentioned before we got on here that I'm writing about it from my new book. I mean, I'm really focusing on this basic idea of looking back to the teachings to see that kind of the relationship between the individual and the community, and in the practice of yoga, and like what is the responsibility. So like what is our responsibility in that regard? Okay, wait, Brenna's saying my sound, it could be louder. Okay, I'm gonna try one more thing. I'm gonna change my mic.
While you change your mic, I'm gonna talk about something that came to mind.
Okay.
There's a line in the Gita, and I'm not gonna get it 100% right, but I'm gonna get,
I'm still here.
Oh.
Can you hear me? How's
Yes.
that?
Yes. You went away and then you came back.
Yeah, I just changed my mic and it made me all go away for that. I just changed my mic, so hopefully, I don't know if that's any better.
What does Brina say?
She's thinking that Rachel could be lower, so I don't know what that means, Rachel, but.
Too loud.
Well, we're doing our best. This is kind of how it goes these days. So I want to know what you were saying just now.
Yeah. I don't know how to change my. Okay. Brina, I'm not sure what to do. There's a line in the Gita where Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and he says, there's something about like banks containing a river. And in the same way that like a well does not need that, the person who is living the teachings does not need to like read or intellectually understand the teachings. And essentially what I always gather from that is take from your lived experience the opportunities for your own growth and evolution, in addition to reading these texts and understanding them intellectually. But what it reminds me is that life is where we get to practice. And that's the bit that I think I hear you say when you talk about community. Because we're here to evolve together.
Yes. So Brina wants me to switch back. I'm just telling you, I'm going to switch back. It's like a game.
Are we on a group text with Brina?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I was actually looking for that section that you were just quoting. It makes me think of those two possible places. It sounds so familiar, but
It's
not knowing
definitely chapter 1. I can likely
chapter
find
one.
it.
Oh, chapter 1.
Oh my God, it's deeply highlighted and underlined.
Okay, what number do you have? What is it?
Oh, it's 246.
Okay.
As unnecessary as the well is to a village on the banks of a river, so unnecessary are all scriptures to someone who has seen the truth.
Yeah, I have a different translation. That for those already enlightened, the scriptures are as useful as a water reservoir during a flood.
Mm.
Yeah, this is a beautiful section that redefines yoga. Okay, and you were saying about that reminds you of what? That reminds you of?
So, in just above it, he's talking about the practice of meditation, of getting clear, and how the scriptures can mimic in some ways our experience of duality and the binary, is what I would say. And that really this practice is beyond the binary. And in that way, we can only experience what that is by engaging in practice, practices that support us in clearing our mind so that we're able to be together.
That's beautiful.
That's how I understand it, at least.
Yeah. I love when you talk about it.
Thanks.
So the part that I've been thinking about, let's see if we're going to quote from the Gita. Let's look at
Let's do it.
chapter 6. There's a section that I actually quoted in my book, Accessible Yoga. There's a part, let's find what number it is.
Which is also in my bookshelf.
Oh, thanks. Okay, now I said 6.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here it is. Number 29 in chapter 6. This whole section is so amazing to me. Like,
yeah.
It really talks about. I mean, usually I mostly read chapter 2 over and over. Like, it's funny that you went to 2 because 2 is like that.
It's so rich.
I know. It's like I could just live in chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few other sections that really stand out to me, including this section in chapter 6. And like actually number 23, it talks about yoga as a means to disconnect with your identification with that which experiences pain.
That's the one that I flipped to, and this is the Stephen Mitchell translation, and it reads, "This is true yoga, the unbinding of the bonds of sorrow. Practice this yoga with determination and with a courageous heart." Like, unbinding sorrow, of course. It always gets me.
Well, this is Swami Satchidananda's translation. This is an old one. But number 29, he says, as your mind becomes harmonized through yoga practices, you begin to see the Atman in all beings and all beings in yourself. You see the same self everywhere and in everything. And I feel like that's connected to what we were talking about in the beginning around spiritual bypass and this idea of connection. Because I feel like, I guess I kind of said before, most people think of yoga as turning inward. And, you know, this idea of, there's like this focus on the self. And yet here he's saying that, he even said earlier in this section that about basically becoming enlightened. So that's like the first step. The next step, he says, is this, you know, seeing the Atman in all beings and all beings in yourself. You see the same self everywhere and in everything. There's another part that he says, where is it? I can't think of where it is, but there's a part where he talks about feeling the pain of others as your own. Do you know that part? Okay, wait. I guess I'm just really wanting to make this point clearly. What do you think? Are we taking too much time on it? I just feel like there's such a misunderstanding about yoga as just a personal journey without care for others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number 32, actually, it's the next section. Oh yeah, there it is. So he keeps going, actually. So I read 29, and he goes on. In 32, he says, the yogi who perceives the essential oneness everywhere naturally feels the pleasure or pain of others as his or her own. What does Mitchell say for that one? Do you have it?
632. When he sees all beings as equal in suffering or in joy because they are like himself, themselves. That man, person, has grown perfect in yoga.
I like your translation better.
I'm always trying to de-gender.
Yeah, right? I know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's spending too much time, because what's interesting too is we could easily take this scripture and say, oh, oneness. This is just saying everyone's the same. But this idea of acknowledging that we are all one, but we are not the same, is the exact thing that can also bring us into a new point of practice in community.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that's the challenge, to understand. Actually, it goes back to questions of duality versus non-duality, right? And this idea that, like, oneness, I think people jump to that, very quickly. It's like, I don't see color, we're all the same. I've heard people, like, when I talk about using pronouns, like correctly using pronouns for people, like presenting your pronouns and then asking people about theirs. And I hear some people say, well, we're all one. I don't care what pronoun you use. Why does it matter? Like, it's a way of belittling the actual experience and the suffering of people. So I feel like it's interesting because the duality, yoga is actually a dual philosophy. Patanjali has, at least in Patanjali's yoga, you have the spirit and the body-mind as separate, and you actually need to see that separation clearly to get to enlightenment. It's almost like we talked about yoga as union, but in a way yoga is more about this, like, separation and seeing clearly first, and then you can have union with yourself, with the spirit, rather than being in the illusion of the body-mind.
Well, to backtrack what you're saying too is, you were saying it's belittling the experience of the other person, but really it's continuing to center yourself in ways that are not necessary, right? So it's like, how do we de-center ourselves to be open to what someone else is actively telling us, and listen and honor and see them, see their pain, see their joy, see their growth. And what's interesting to consider from a philosophical perspective is how Samkhya philosophy informs this text. And in Samkhya philosophy...
How it informs the Gita, you mean?
Yes. So in Samkhya philosophy, there's this interplay of form and formless. That is the dance that creates the experience of coming into form. And from there, it's like universal consciousness, individual consciousness, the sense of self through ego, and then the elements of, like, being in the world, sense objects, etc. And so that's often what I refer back to when I talk about the dance of consciousness.
That's beautiful.
And the opportunity to remember that our individual experience of our body or the world really came from that which cannot be named or seen, having a desire to experience the world. And that's what has created all of us.
That's beautiful. That reminds me of a quote I've been thinking about a lot recently by, I think it's Ramana Maharshi. You know, Ramana Maharshi was like a jnana yogi, and he said something about enlightenment. He talked about oneness versus duality, and about he's saying, I don't want to be sugar, I want to eat sugar. And so he's saying, like, rather than this idea of merging into oneness with God, that actually separation is a way of, like, that, having that relationship. Like, what did you just say? Like, a way of experiencing. How did you just say it? I don't know what you said. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the reason we're here. You just basically answered all my problems my whole life. Like, I've always wondered why I'm here. And you just said, like, we're here because, and I don't remember what it was, but because we want to experience that.
Yeah, well, how I understand Samkhya philosophy after studying it, which I did so mostly through Ayurvedic courses, is that there's a pulse of desire that is what initiates creation, and is what creates that experience or that shift from formless to form. So it's in desire.
Which is so interesting because in the sutras, actually in the Gita too, there's a lot of talk about desire. And it's almost like the lesson around desire is learning how to shift that desire from the ego-focused self to more of service. You know? So like that's exactly the topic, right? That like social justice is actually that process of like thinking, oh, I want everyone to have the same justice that I have, or that anyone else has.
To be fully self-expressed. And the distinction between that selfish element and the wise one is discernment.
Right. Discernment, which is that section that I'm really interested in the sutras, where I feel like it's a part that's like skipped over a lot in the yoga teachings. I guess in both. Again, I have to think about where it is in the Gita. See, I think more about the sutras, I guess. But in the sutras, discernment is talked about specifically in chapter 2, like right before Patanjali presents the 8 limbs, and he talks about viveka. In fact, the 8 limbs of yoga, he actually says, are done in order to cultivate discriminative discernment, or viveka. That's like the reason you do the 8 limbs. That's the reason you practice Ashtanga yoga. And I don't mean Ashtanga like that style, like the 8 limbs of yoga, right? Yama, niyama, asana, all that. It's in service of that clear vision, right? And I'm sure it's in the Gita too. Where can we find it in the Gita?
In service of clear vision?
Yeah. Do you feel like that's the same message? You said, what word did you use? Discrimination?
Discernment.
Discernment. Thank you. Discernment.
Yeah, I think so. I think we could refer back to what you mentioned, what we read, like slokas 32-ish. And what I think is more interesting to consider is the context of the story is like, that's what Arjuna's looking for. And and clarity. And he's stuck. He's in this moment of like being trapped and so scared. And it's his dialogue with Krishna, who represents, God as we know it to be, that supports him in getting free. But not only because it's the dialogue from one-to-one, it's because the offering in the whole text is that Krishna is Arjuna. Arjuna is Krishna. They're not separate.
Right. It's an internal dialogue. You mean? Is that what you mean? Like it's a conversation. No?
It's what I would say is it's like Arjuna understanding that he is Krishna in the same way that we just said, like seeing ourselves in others, seeing God in ourselves.
I love that. That's amazing. I mean, I think of it. I didn't think of it at that level. I was just thinking of it like that. It's an analogy for an inner conversation between your own spirit and your mind. Kind of like that's the dialogue that's going on. You know, the analogy of the battle that's happening within us. But I love that. I like that you took us back to the kind of the challenge that the Gita is addressing, which is Arjuna's confusion, right? Which I love chapter 2, sloka number 7, where he talks about that. Like to me, that you have to get that point, and for it to make sense. Where he says, "I'm weighed down with weak-mindedness. I'm confused and cannot understand my duty. I beg of you to say for sure what is right for me to do. I am your disciple. Please teach me, for I have taken refuge in you." It's like that is that's the premise of all the teachings, like right, that he's confused. So you're saying all of the Gita is actually to give him clear vision, right? To give him discernment. Yeah. Yeah,
if we're getting super meta, which is
okay.
How my brain tends to go. So I recognize that I'm like,
it's okay. I like
all
it.
this.
I think it's true. I think that's true. The context is, I'm weighed down. I'm weak-minded. I'm confused. I don't understand my duty. So it's like, I don't know how to act. I don't know what's best to do. And then in the next section, it goes on and he basically, or leading up to there, he explains why war is bad, why he shouldn't fight, this reason, that reason. He comes up with like every reason in the book, like why he shouldn't do this thing. And then Krishna is just like waiting, like, are you done? You're like, and then Krishna smiles like that. I love that, like number 10 in chapter 2, Krishna seemed to smile, and it's like, the teacher, like the knowing teacher, kind of like the wise teacher would be like, okay, you're done like making all the excuses, like now you're ready to learn, like now you're ready to face the facts, of this situation that you're yeah. So like I guess I'm still wanting to go back to like those people who say yoga is not politics. Like I don't know. I'm a little bit obsessed with it these days just because of what's happening in this country, and and how I feel like there's a lot of beautiful things happening, and there's this awakening around civil rights and social justice, but there's also like this danger of like a reaction to that, I think on the part of our president and his supporters is like they're actually using that revolution as like the key element of their platform to like get reelected. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's that fear is literally like that's his only like thing that he's trying to sell people, right? Like fear. And then within the yoga community, to see people who, I mean, just because you practice yoga doesn't mean you're like liberal or awakened or whatever, but still to say
that's why we practice, right?
Yeah. But to say that yoga is not about those things just drives me crazy. I don't know, it just makes me crazy.
Yeah. I was talking to my brother about this because I don't watch a ton of TV, and if I do, it's like Netflix or something, so I'm not really seeing commercials.
Yeah.
And recently I've noticed when I watch YouTube, the ads are getting really intense. And I'm like, whoa, like I'm watching the system at play.
Yeah.
And the tone is so intense. And they're like, in Georgia in particular, there's this big race with John Ossoff, and it's like Hollywood John. And there's just all of it. And I'm like, I don't even know what it is that's being said, but the energetics of it are offensive and aggressive. And then I think about what it might feel like to listen to that and take it in, and for that to be your whole experience. And when you talk about living in fear, I think for me that helps build some compassion, simply because I just have to think to myself, whoa, what is that like? That the media, these ads, are creating a narrative that some folks are not able to break free from. They are so terrified and terrorized by. And that is their whole world. And I think, like, when I consider that, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
And this is not the same, but I used to be in an interracial relationship, and my partner and I would joke about anyone that has a problem with our relationship, like how boring their life must be to be so upset that we're together. And I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's interesting to consider the ways in which we can be really bound. And that is also what the practice teaches us. As in the mind, so in your world. What is our responsibility to liberation?
Thank you. Wow, that's beautiful. So, but one thing you just said, though, was about how politics is so kind of dirty and energetically painful to be involved with. So I think maybe that made me think that maybe part of the bypassing that we're seeing in yoga land is that people just don't want to allow that into their lives. They're trying to separate themselves from that. And so their yoga becomes kind of like they think of it as a place to retreat to. You know, the yoga practice becomes like a sanctuary, an inner sanctuary where you find peace. And it is that, right? Like yoga practice can be that. But it's privileged to think that that's all it is and to not go to the next step. It's almost like you have a privilege to just hang out there, isolated, rather than engaged.
Yeah, and this is a general thought, again, not a direct quote, but Generative Somatics is an organization that I follow and really respect their work. And in some place or reading or podcast, I heard a thing that was like, we don't practice to feel better, we practice to feel more. And that's the distinction, right? That I hear you saying, is that when we practice yoga to only try to like, wow, look at what I can do now. Or, you know, when we're mistaking the, oh, you have a shirt that says it, outer achievement over inner.
Outer ability does not equal inner peace.
Yes, it's like it has a equation or something. I'm seeing it in my brain. That we miss the practice when we only practice for the sake of feeling better. That is only one dimension of our reality. And in fact, our practice, I believe, is intended to support us in feeling more so that we can be awake for the world.
But I think that's, that it's such a, compare that to what you just said like a minute ago about how the fear, you know, and how like when you looked at YouTube and the energetics was so overwhelming, but what you're saying is actually that's the practice. So like, you know what I'm saying, but I can see why, I'm just saying I can see why it's hard, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
hard.
Right, because we want to avoid pain. And actually, a lot of the teachings are about that, avoiding
Yep.
pain, like future pain is avoidable. But I think we misunderstand the root of the pain, and how to move through it. Seems like we try to avoid, and I can speak for myself. Yeah, like I like to turn off the news and turn it off and avoid listening to that, thinking that that's going to save me. But actually, I think that is a misunderstanding, and that actually allowing for that pain and to have the experience and the emotion, processing it better, is a healthier way than just like with any emotion, processing is healthier than repression, repressing your feelings.
Yes,
Yeah. That's
totally.
like psychology 101, right? That's what I'm saying.
I'm only laughing because I'm a person who's in therapy every week and is managing my own mental health journey.
Yeah.
So I don't want to appear that like I was a master of the teachings or something. The reason I cling to these teachings is because I need them.
Me
Like
too.
I need them. And that's another element that the Gita teaches us all about is like how to engage with what is described as sense objects, acting on sense objects, right? So it's the fear and the pain, and it's like what we miss is if we're not able to observe that that's what we're experiencing, and
Yeah.
we're only able to say, this is who I am, is that experience, that's what I believe it teaches we get trapped.
Yeah, and can I read that section? There's a section in the Gita that I love around, it's again chapter 2, of course. Number 62 and 63, he says, actually, I'm just going to read 63 because I think 63 just goes right to the heart of it, which is anger confuses the thinking process, which in turn disturbs memory. When memory fails, reasoning is ruined, and when reason is gone, one is lost. Actually, I'm losing you now. Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, that's so weird. The image went away on there. Um, so anyway, he's talking about, and the previous one talks about attachment and personal desire, and from desire, anger appears. Then he says, in 63, anger confuses the thinking process, and talks about how basically once you allow the emotions to control your thinking, that you're lost. And then he says, but the yogi who has disciplined the mind and has control of the senses can move about amidst sense objects, free of attraction and aversion, settling more deeply in tranquility. In that tranquility, all sorrows fall away, because the discerning intellect of a calm mind is soon secure in equilibrium. Yes, your video is gone. It's true, your video is gone, but we can hear
Wait,
you. I can hear you.
what?
It
How?
might be
I
your
see.
internet. Now you're back.
Okay. Oh,
Anyway, I don't want to keep you much longer. I know it's been almost an hour. Just any other things you want to share, or any thoughts about that before we?
the other thing I was going to say is in chapter 14,
Okay.
that one's all about the gunas. So that's the part where
Yeah.
like the manual kind of comes to life from the
Right.
Gita that I think. And no, I think the only thing that I saw that felt like really a sweet place, well, the first thing I was going to say is back to the mental health conversation.
Yeah.
Around the sense objects and navigating the world. Like it is really important that we have all the tools that we need. So that's the other part too, is yoga is a tool, and we may need many tools to help us be in the world. And I know that that's true for me. So that's one thing I would say. And then the only thing is in chapter 9, it's sloka 26, any offering, a leaf, a flower or fruit, a cup of water, I will accept it if given with a loving heart. And I love that bit is just an offering around puja, devotion, and that when we're acting in this way, and if we remember that we are connected to that which is universal, then whatever it is we are offering to that which is universal, we are offering to ourselves.
And I would add that, like, demonstrating for somebody's rights is a gesture of love. You know, that's an act of love. Like, I know that from my days demonstrating, the only thing that gets me on the street is because I feel love and compassion
Yes.
for others. And I love the idea of that as, I think it's an offering too. And it's an offering to put yourself out there, to speak up, to put your body on the line like that. It's true devotion. So.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
It was so fun to me.
That was fun, and I think even the audio stuff is funny. It's always something.
I'm sorry, I should have joined earlier.
No, it's fine. That's how it goes.
Okay.
Thanks, and great to see you. And you know, I know you're not on Facebook, right? So, which is incredible. You're on Instagram, right? People can find you there. Anything else? Anywhere else they can find you?
I'm on Instagram.
At Rachelle Knowles.
At Rachelle Knowles, yes. I'm going to be teaching in some virtual trainings, which I'm excited about. Yeah, but it'll be on Instagram.
Okay, it'll be on Instagram.
Not the training, the information. I also have a website.
You have a website? Okay, you know what? Is it your name?
Yeah.
RachelKnowles.com?
Yep. RACHELLE. KNOWLES.
Is there anything between your first and last name?
Nope.
Okay. We can add it. Or maybe Brina, I see Brina's there. Maybe you can post it in the comments, the website, Rachel's website. Cool. Thanks for being here today. Great
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us. That was really awesome.
Thank you for inviting me in.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, bye.